Hello everyone and Happy New Year! I hope that you all had a wonderful Christmas and holiday season, and I will be announcing the winners of my calendar giveaway later on in this video. But let's get back to the build, and welcome to day 16 of our RV-10 build. Today we are resuming work on the rudder. As I mentioned in the last video, the replacement pieces that we had ordered from Vans had come in, and we trimmed down and fitted the stiffener that had to be replaced, and now we're working on putting everything back together for match drilling the trailing edge wedge before going and countersinking that again. And as you can see too, we had to match drill also for the stiffener that we put in. So we had the longer drill bit there to try and help match up all of the holes to align the stiffener that was replaced with the one on the opposite side, as well as the shear clip. So here you go, we've got the trailing edge wedge clipped in, and I'm marking down where the edge of the rudder skin is so that I know where to trim off once we pull it out, because they send it to you long, so that way it's fitted just right to your skins. You trim it down once you've got it all put together. And as I mentioned in the day 10 video, what I'm doing here is we're setting up our little horizontal plumb line to help us find the cord line of the rudder. Quick little recap: took a piece of string, tied it to a cleco that was in the middle there of the top and bottom ribs, and then ran the string through the center hole at the back of the rib, so that then we could use that along with a level to figure out when the cord line was parallel to the surface of the tabletop, to help make sure that we were getting everything, all the holes drilled in properly, because you're supposed to have the holes drilled in at perpendicular to the cord line, not perpendicular to the surface of the skin. So now move all the clecos around, go finish the match drilling, and go and do the countersinking on all of those holes that we just drilled there into the trailing edge wedge. And after that, the next step, once you've got all of these parts now squared away and figured out, and everything that we'd riveted together previously in the other rudder videos, now we get to the tricky part, which involved using the Pro Seal for the first time. And we watched a lot of different videos about this. We'd heard about using the Pro Seal and being time sensitive. You only have a certain number, I believe it's like 2 hours to work with it. We heard about how much it smells and how it gets like everywhere. I mean, there's all sorts of different little horror stories. So we went in the house, changed some clothes. We didn't mind getting completely ruined if it got all over us. Cleared off everything on the table there, cleared off the towels, and I had it so it was just down to the wood, and went and read through all the instructions quite a bit. We just tried to make sure we were as well prepared as we could using the information we'd learned from other people's experiences. So now that we have the two replacement parts prepped and ready to go for installation, but before we actually get into the installing, I'd like to take this opportunity to announce the winners for the 8 Vans 2020 calendars from my giveaway. Using a random number generator, these people have been selected from those who were eligible. Congratulations to Scott Bennett, Slappy Happy, Drew Nathanson, Matt Bixby, Matt Kalin, G Money, Patrick Poulis, and Brent Grossdidier. Thank you so much for everybody who participated, and congratulations to our winners. I will be leaving you a message with my email so that you can give me your mailing address and I can get those sent out to you. Thanks again, everyone, for participating. Back to the build.
Alright. So. You have your gloves?
I do. I'm not gonna lie, we are kind of nervous about doing this next part, because the big thing it says in the book is we have 2 hours from when seal is ready to complete everything. So we're going to take another minute to go over all the stuff. We've watched a couple more videos of how other people did it. We've got some gloves we're trying to go into help protect our hands. And we'll see. I love you.
First kiss.
Yes, that's the first kiss. Like, I love you. We might be yelling at each other here in a minute. We can.
The first common kiss.
So I tried to get the table there all squared away and make sure that we were both definitely on the same page. I think it also helped trying to make sure that we had all the different tools out that we were going to need to use. So making sure we understood, okay, this part has to get cleat-coed here, this part has to get cleat-coed there, and so how many cleat-coes do we need, what kind of cleat-coes do we need, and just really making sure to walk through it. So figured it was better to have an understanding about what we would need to be doing instead of trying to read through the instructions as we're doing it. So I think that was really helpful and important. But you know, the best laid plans, we had a little snafu that came up. And I will get to that when we get to that point, but sometimes things just don't work out. Right here, one little thing I would have done differently if I were to do it again is that for this Pro Seal kit that we had for this small amount, there was a little sachet that then you had to squeeze the contents into a small pot to mix it to make the Pro Seal. I had just cut it all the way across the top, but going back, what I would do this time is I would just cut off a corner so then it's more like a little icing bag and you can then more easily squeeze the contents directly into the pot instead of kind of having it get everywhere. So just a tip, if you get the little small Pro Seal kit, I think this was something we got from Vans, just cut off the corner and squeeze it in that way. It just makes it a little easier, a little less messy. Random side note, people were not exaggerating when they said this stuff smells. It is truly heinous. It is like a gross combination of farts and burning rubber. Awful, awful smell. I had some vinyl gloves in the house, pulled those out to help. I mean, it will stick, obviously, to any of the Pro Seal, but I figured better to have it stick to the gloves and to our hands and our fingers and have to try and figure that out. So it worked out pretty easy. Had Tyler just kind of pick it up and maneuver it while I took the little popsicle stick that came with our kit and scraped it on there really, really thin. And then just used some scrap pieces of wood to set it down whenever we needed to so that it wouldn't sit on the workbench surface. We didn't want to have it damage the workbench surface where now we didn't have a nice perfect flat space to work on. So we just rested it on some scrap piece of wood. And once you get the two sides there with the Pro Seal applied, there's, again, very particular set of steps about how you're supposed to do this, so make sure to pay attention. But put the trailing edge wedge there on the back, and then you start cleat-going it from the bottom, so that once you put the left skin on top, then you start to cleat-go it down as you work it. And so you cleat-go all along the bottom rib, and then you start cleat-going down the trailing edge wedge as you move it down. As you put the left skin on top of the right skin, you then start to rivet the two stiffeners from the two sides of the skins together to each other and then to the shear clips. And right about here is where disaster struck. Well, not disaster, but it sure felt like disaster. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay, we go. I don't know how to do that. All right, the mandrel of the pop rivet I had just installed had snapped off about halfway up, and so we had quite a significant bit sticking out of the top of the rivet, but not enough for the rivet gun to grab onto to continue installing it properly. Right here where I am going, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. You can even hear in the video, I specifically said, I don't know how to do this. And what I should have done right there is put everything down and get out the book, the Vans book. Because here you can see in that section, I think it's 5.4 on riveting in the Vans manual, it specifically tells you how to do it. And if you understand what I have mentioned in the previous videos about how you install the pop rivets, it makes great sense about how you would remove it. You're supposed to go and take a punch and hammer it where the stem then would pop out of the shop head of the rivet, or in the case like this was where the stem broke, you would just hit on the end of the stem to remove it, and the same thing would happen when you would hit on the end of the stem where it broke on the factory head side. Then the stem would then pop back out of the shop head side. You'd pull that out, and then you could go as normal with a drill and go through the factory head side and start to drill out that part of the rivet, and then remove it as you would with any other rivet. So that's what we should have done. I don't even want to go into what we did because it's totally wrong, and I don't want anyone else to make another foolish mistake. The good news is this. The good news is, we did get it out, and we finished installing everything as we should per the instructions. And the really great thing is that it just so happened that the following day we had our first meeting with our EAA technical advisor, who is in charge of the local EAA chapter. He's really, really nice. He came out with another gentleman who also lives in our neighborhood, and he's building another RV. And it was really nice to have somebody who could come to the house and look at everything and look at and see what happened and walk us through it and talk to us about how we should handle things in the future, or just a second set of eyes that's done this before, where now they looked at it and they were able to help walk us through how to fix the problem. And you might get a kick out of this. I certainly did. This is where they told us about going to the aviation department at Home Depot. And silly me, my heart skipped a beat, and I was like, oh wow, they have one of those. And they both laughed. That's right, I'm incredibly gullible, apparently. I think it was just so hopeful to hear that there was a solution to this problem that I just completely went for it, hook, line, and sinker. And all they were talking about was that there are certain parts that you can get there at the local hardware store. In this case, it was a slightly larger pop rivet, and they looked at everything that had happened, and fortunately the hole had just been slightly enlarged. And so we talked to him about it, said, what should we do? And he explained about going to get a slightly larger pop rivet there at the quote-unquote aviation department in Home Depot, and use that to resolve the problem, to install that there into that slightly larger hole, and that fixed it. That fortunately resolved the problem. So we were very blessed. We didn't have to go and try and figure out how to rip out a shear clip and a stiffener and whatnot. Everything just got resolved quite easily. But learn from our mistake. Learn from this. I think that had it not been for using that Pro Seal for the first time and being very worried about being up against a clock, that I think we would have felt a lot more confident about just kind of stopping and taking the time to go in and read in the book. And I think getting too worked up about it was I think a 2-hour window. So I mean, really, we had the time to stop and pull it up, but in the heat of the moment and the anxiety that kicked in, just tried to start troubleshooting it on our own. And that, sure, on certain things perhaps, but not on this. This was just, should have gone and looked at the instructions, because again, it was right there. It was quite clear, and it was a very easy fix. Another great thing with having this EAA technical counselor is that when he came, he knew we were working there on the trailing edge wedge for the rudder, and this is where having somebody with other experience is just so great, because he had some wonderful tools and suggestions, and the instructions that talks about that you can go and lay a board and then put weights on to try to weigh down everything and really squeeze it all together there on the trailing edge wedge while the Pro Seal dries. And what he had that he let us borrow was a piece that he manufactured, a angle that was just over the length of the whole trailing edge wedge, and he had gone in and had drilled the holes to correspond to those in the trailing edge wedge. And so what that then allowed you to do is to cleco that part there on the top. And so now instead of having a wooden board or some weights, this was now a very rigid piece of metal that you had to cleco on top to really help make sure that there was no warping, that the trailing edge was nice and straight and flat. And again, once he said it and showed it to us, it was kind of a, oh, of course. But this is where having that experience of somebody who's done this before and getting to glean some of that knowledge off of them has been really helpful. So just remember, don't panic when something goes wrong. I think, again, that if we hadn't been so stressed out and worried about working with the Pro Seal the first time, that we wouldn't have minded or been so concerned about stopping and picking up the book. But the good news is it was an easy fix, and definitely something to keep in mind in the future if anything like that ever happens again. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And leave me a comment down below letting me know if you've had any really crazy experiences, or if you have other great tips like the one we got from our technical advisor. One final thought as we're finishing up here. I'm excited because one of the things Tyler got me for Christmas was the new Vans Aircraft light box. Very excited. I think it'll be something really fun to have out in the garage, and I'll probably be putting together a little video of that as well.